So this next one, Northern Pacific Railroad shop girls out of Pasco, Washington. So now as you look at this picture, there's 1, 2, 3, there's 6, there's 7 women in the photograph, all in coveralls and utility shirts, got shop hats on, and no nonsense. As World War I and the call went out, women stepped up to take the men's positions. So because the railroad industry at that time was so heavily manual, big wrenches and big heavy things, right, to put a locomotive together and make it run. Somebody had to do that work. And they did. So this is one picture. I'm not sure if he was on the train looking out the window at this or not. So as they left, they got on a troop train. And this is Mandan, South Dakota. I believe it's North Dakota, but I'll have to double check that. And that's my father leaning out the window. And then the next picture is they greeted us at the depot at Mandan, South Dakota. So here's all these young women looking at all these handsome young men going off to war, and hearts aflutter, and maybe the last beautiful woman they'll see for a while, and maybe flowers and notes were exchanged, and perhaps kisses. You never know. So there's that. This is one of my favorite photographs. This is my father leaving American Lake. Again, he's written twice on the photograph. Once on the picture and once on the pages. Leaving American Lake, August 1st. Arrived France, September 1st. Actually, they arrived a little bit earlier than that. So that's my dad leaning out the window. He's got something around his neck. Sure wish I knew what that was. And he's got a big old smile. And they all do. So this one is very interesting. They stopped briefly in Minnesota at Lake Pippen. Okay. So this one says, at Lake Pippen in Minnesota, quotes, just before a rainstorm. And as I read the history of the 18th Engineers in detail, they talk about baths were infrequent, and this was one of the last real times when they got wet and were able to clean up, if you will. But you look at this, these little pup tents. This is like Civil War type stuff, right? This is what you do in your backyard with a rope and a blanket. And then my dad wrote on the picture, it says, solid comfort. So he stood here, looked down this row of tents, took this picture, and then pivoted, I'm sure, to his right, and took this picture. So it's the Lake Pippen, Minnesota, which he writes on the photo. He says Lake Pippen again, in parentheses, and something else. And it's a superimposed picture of the previous picture. You can see the tents that were in the previous picture, and the legs of the guys there. So somehow a FUBU back in the day, he didn't advance the film. I'm not sure how that worked. So anyway, this is a picture. This is actually glued into the cover of the album. A lot of information on this. So it's clearly a postcard in the original red border. He writes, it says on the postcard, the Saxonia leaving New York Harbor for Europe with American troops. It's the RMS Saxonia, the Royal Mail Service Saxonia, RMS. And then he writes in it in several different notes. At the top he says, I spent my 21st birthday aboard en route to France, August 7th, 1917. He was born on August 7th, 1896. Then below he wrote, August 4th, 1917 is when they were leaving New York Harbor. Later sank by the German U-boat. And I've had to document that. There's a little discrepancy in that note. I'm not sure why he wrote that, but I'll flesh that out. So, now we're getting into some names. So, here we go. So, take a good look here, folks. If you're watching this, if you had relatives that were in World War I, if your last name was Liddell or Hermanson, this is pictures of them. This is on board the RMS Saxonia. And again, he writes it twice on the paper and on the photo. And he wrote their names. That's all he wrote. And I believe I found their names on the roster behind me. Taken probably the same time. Same guy, different guy on the right or the left. If these are your relatives, let me know. This gives you an idea of what it was like on board the ship, packed to the gunnels. And this one says, the bow of the RMS Saxonia is written on the photo, and then below it, somewhere on the Atlantic aboard the English ship Saxonia. And they have rudimentary life jackets on, life vests, if you will. Just looks like probably cork wrapped in canvas would be my guess. So, and then the 18th Engineers traveled across on the Saxonia. The 19th Engineers also were aboard the Saxonia. He took a picture of this guy. This says, written on the photo, a dub of the 19th Engineers, U.S., and then that's all written on the page. No name. If you recognize him, let me know.